The great crystal dome of Nexus Prime gleamed under three suns as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency session. Admiral Kethvar's blue scales rippled with annoyance as he walked through the halls. His people, the Zilani, had ruled space for over 2,000 years. They did not like surprises. More ghost stories, he muttered to his aide. The council calls us here for censor shadows and old wives' tales. But Dr. Yila Thornweave felt differently as she prepared her presentation in the archive chambers beneath the meeting hall. Her 6 arms moved quickly across holographic displays, pulling up data from 17 different worlds. Each excavation site showed the same thing. The same symbol. The same impossible age. The council chamber fell silent as the delegates took their seats. The Vorthon representatives floated in their environmental suits, their tentacles twitching nervously. The rock-like granite clan sat motionless, as they always did. Smaller species filled the remaining spaces, all united under the banner of the Galactic Confederation. Chancellor Mordecai called the session to order with a deep, rumbling voice. We gather because of disturbing reports from the Rim territories. Ships appearing where no ships should be, signals that make no sense. Admiral Kethvar will brief us first. The Zilani admiral stepped forward, his military bearing perfect despite his clear irritation. Honored delegates, we have investigated these so-called mysterious contacts. Our analysis shows sensor malfunctions, debris clouds, and natural phenomena. Nothing more. 3 patrol fleets have reported unusual readings, but when our investigation teams arrived, they found empty space. Murmurs filled the chamber. The smaller species seemed relieved, but several of the older delegates looked unconvinced. However, Kethvar continued, his voice growing more serious. I must report that as of yesterday, we have lost contact with all 3 investigation fleets. They departed for the Rim sectors and have not reported back. The murmurs turned to worried chatter. 3 fleets meant nearly 1,000 ships and crew members. Chancellor Mordecai's massive form shifted forward. Dr. Thornweave, you requested time to present your findings. The floor is yours. Yila moved to the center of the chamber, her data projectors activating. The air above the delegates filled with images of ancient ruins, carved stones and metal fragments. Honored Council, she began, her voice steady despite her racing hearts. What I'm about to show you will challenge everything we believe about galactic history. The first image showed a carved wall from the dead world of Kepler 7. Ancient symbols covered the stone, but one symbol appeared again and again, a small blue circle surrounded by darkness, with a single gray circle beside it. This symbol appears on 17 worlds across the galaxy. All of these worlds show signs of ancient civilization. All of them were abandoned at roughly the same time, approximately 12,000 years ago. She changed the display. Now the chamber showed ruins from different worlds, different species, different architectural styles. But always the same symbol appeared. The symbol is always carved in the most sacred spaces of these ruins, temple centers, royal chambers, places of honor. But here is what truly disturbs me. The display changed again. The symbol appears in the oldest myths of 43 different species. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. 43 species meant most of the galaxy's known intelligent life. In Zilani mythology, they are called the Star Sworn. In Vorthan legends, the Lost Wanderers. The Granite Clan remembers them as the Builders of Tomorrow, but they all describe the same thing, a species of incredible adaptability and determination, a people who could survive anywhere, learn anything, and never gave up. Admiral Kethvar interrupted. Dr. Thornweave, with respect, myths are not evidence. Every species has legends about mysterious ancestors or lost civilizations. That is true, Admiral, but myths do not usually share identical technical specifications. The display changed to show ancient technical drawings. These are blueprints found in ruins across the galaxy. They show ship designs, weapon systems, and technologies that our current science cannot fully understand. More importantly, they are identical across all 17 sites, despite being created by different species separated by thousands of light years. The chamber grew very quiet. Even the usually restless Vorthan delegates stopped moving. Yila continued, her voice growing stronger. The myths all tell the same story. These people, these Terraborn as the oldest records call them, were once part of the galactic community. They lived among us, traded with us, learned from us, but something happened. Something that drove them away from the galaxy entirely. What kind of something? Asked a delegate from the insect-like hive collective. The records are unclear. Some speak of a great betrayal. Others mention a terrible weapon. But they all agree on one point. The Terraborn did not die, they left. They went into the darkness between galaxies and they swore they would return. Admiral Kethvar's laugh was sharp and dismissive. So you believe these missing fleets are connected to a mythical species that may or may not have existed 12,000 years ago? Before Yila could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Emergency lighting bathed everything in red as Chancellor Mordecai's communications officer rushed to his side. "Chancellor," the officer whispered urgently, "we are receiving a priority transmission from the Rim territories. It is unusual." "Put it through," Mordecai commanded. The chamber's speakers crackled to life. What came through was not a voice but a series of mathematical sequences, numbers that meant nothing to most of the delegates. But Dr. Thornweave's face went pale as she began to understand. "It is a message," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the continuing transmission. "The mathematical sequences spell out words in the old script. The same script found in the ruins. What does it say?" demanded Kethavar. Yila's hands shook as she worked her translator. The chamber fell silent except for the continuing mathematical broadcast. When she looked up, her eyes were wide with fear. "It says, we remember the exile. We remember the betrayal. We are coming home." The transmission stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. Chancellor Mordecai was the first to speak. "Dr. Thornweave, in your professional opinion, what are we dealing with?" She looked around the chamber at delegates who had ruled the galaxy for millennia, leaders of species that had never known defeat, beings who had conquered star systems and reshaped worlds to their will, and she gave them an answer that would haunt their dreams. "I believe, Chancellor, that we are about to meet the species our ancestors tried very hard to forget, and judging by their message, they have not forgotten us." Outside the crystal dome, the three suns of Nexus Prime began to set. In the darkness between the stars, something vast was moving toward them. Something that had been waiting 12,000 years for this moment. The age of myths was ending. The age of reckoning had begun. Captain Zextai had commanded exploration vessels for 30 years, but she had never seen anything like the debris field floating in the void before her ship. The Star Whisper drifted slowly through wreckage that stretched for thousands of kilometers in every direction. Analysis complete. "Captain," reported her science officer, a young Granite clan member named Boulder Who Thinks. His rock-like features showed confusion as he studied his readings. "The metal composition is unlike anything in our databases. It contains elements that should not exist in this combination." Zextai's tentacles coiled with worry as she studied the tactical display. 3 Confederation fleets had vanished in this sector. Nearly 1,000 ships and their crews gone without a trace. The only thing left was this graveyard of twisted metal. "Show me the largest pieces," she ordered. The main viewer changed to focus on a massive hull fragment. It was easily the size of a small moon, but its design made no sense. The metal looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. Smooth curves blended with sharp angles in ways that hurt to look at. Strange symbols covered the surface, glowing faintly with their own inner light. "Captain," called her communications officer, a nervous Forthan named Silka, "I am detecting energy signatures from that fragment. It appears to be partially active." Zextai made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. "Take us closer." Full scanning protocols. The Star Whisper approached the hull fragment carefully. As they drew near, more details became visible. The metal showed signs of incredible violence. Weapons had torn through armor that looked thick enough to stop a planet-killer missile. But whatever had destroyed these ships had done so with surgical precision. "Captain," Boulder Who Thinks announced, his voice filled with awe and terror, "these ships were not built by any known species. The technology is completely foreign. But there is something else. The weapons damage patterns suggest the attackers knew exactly how to disable these vessels. They targeted specific systems with perfect accuracy." "How is that possible?" Zextai asked. "These appear to be exploration vessels, not military ships. Who would know their weak points?" Before anyone could answer, alarms began screaming throughout the bridge. Their sensor operator, a quick-fingered member of the insect collective, chittered in panic. "Captain, massive energy signature approaching from deep space. Distance, 50,000 kilometers and closing fast." "On screen," Zextai ordered. The viewer showed empty space for a moment. Then reality seemed to tear itself apart. A hole in space opened, edges crackling with energy that made their instruments go crazy. From that impossible wound in the universe, something emerged. It was a ship. But calling it a ship was like calling a hurricane a gentle breeze. The vessel was the size of a small moon. Its hull a dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Massive structures jutted from its surface. Clearly weapons, but of a design that defied understanding. Along its sides, glowing symbols pulsed in patterns that made Zextai's mind ache to follow. "By the 7 stars," whispered Silka. "What is that thing?" "Unknown vessel," Zextai broadcast on all standard frequencies. "This is Captain Zextai of the Confederation ship Star Whisper. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." Silence stretched across space for long minutes. Then their communications array activated, but not with any signal they recognized. Mathematics flooded their systems. Equations and formulas that their computers could barely process. "Captain," Boulder Who Thinks called out, his rocky voice shaking. "The mathematical sequences are resolving into language patterns. It appears to be the same ancient script that Dr. Thornweave discovered. Can you translate it?" "Working on it now, Captain. The patterns are complex, but I think I can—" He stopped, his stone features growing pale as granite could manage. "Captain, the message is, why do you wear their faces? Why do you fly their ships? Where are the ones who sent you?" Zextai felt confusion wash over her. "Respond that we do not understand the question. We are representatives of the Galactic Confederation, seeking peaceful contact." More mathematics flooded their systems. This time the translation came faster. "The Confederation. Yes, we know this name. But you are not the ones who built it. You are not the ones who made the choice. Where are the elder races? Where are the architects of exile?" "Elder races?" Zextai muttered to herself. In all her years exploring the galaxy, she had never heard that term. "Tell them we seek information about our missing fleets." The response came immediately, and its tone made everyone on the bridge step back from their stations. "Your fleets trespassed in our territory. They carried the weapons of our enemies. They flew under the banners of our betrayers. We defended ourselves." "Captain," Silka whispered, "they are telling us they destroyed 3 entire fleets. But the mathematical transmission was not finished. But you are different. You are the children, not the parents. You do not remember what was done. This is curious. We will allow you to leave and carry a message to your leaders." "What message?" Zextai asked aloud. The answer came in words that would echo through galactic politics for centuries to come. "Tell them the exiled have returned. Tell them we remember every betrayal, every life lost in the cold dark between galaxies. Tell them we have grown strong in our wandering, and we are no longer alone. The Terran Dominion has come home, and we bring with us all the others you cast into the void." "Terran?" Boulder Who Thinks gasped. "As in Terra, the mythical homeworld from the legends." New energy readings spiked across their sensors. The massive ship was powering up systems that hurt to scan directly. "Tell your leaders," the message continued, "that they have one choice. Meet with us and face the truth of what they did. Or we will remind them why their ancestors feared us enough to erase us from their memories." "Captain," the sensor operator chittered frantically. More signatures approaching. Dozens of them. All massive. The viewer split to show multiple screens. Ships were emerging from that tear in space. Ships of designs that belonged in no known database. Some looked like they had been grown rather than built. Others seemed to be made of living crystal. Still others appeared to be solid energy held together by will alone. But the most unsettling thing was how they moved. Despite their different designs and origins, every ship moved in perfect coordination, as if thousands of different species were somehow thinking with one mind. "We go now," the mathematical voice announced. "But we will return, and next time, we will not come alone to talk." The massive ship began to turn away, its escort fleet forming up around it like planets around a star. "Captain," Silka called out, "should we follow them?" Zextai looked at the tactical display. 57 ships, all larger than anything in the Confederation fleet, all moving with impossible precision, all clearly built for war on a scale the galaxy had never seen. "No," she said quietly. "We go home. We deliver their message, and we pray to whatever gods we worship that our leaders are wise enough to listen." As the Star Whisper turned toward home, Captain Zextai could not shake the feeling that she had just witnessed the end of the galaxy as they knew it. Something ancient had returned from the dark between stars, something that remembered betrayal and had spent thousands of years growing strong enough to do something about it. The age of the Galactic Confederation was about to end. What would replace it she could not imagine, but she suspected they were about to find out. Dr. Yela Thornweave had not slept in 3 days. Her 6 arms moved constantly across holographic displays, pulling data from the deepest archives beneath Nexus Prime. Captain Zextai's report had sent shockwaves through the Confederation, but it had also given Yela the key she needed to unlock 12,000 years of forgotten history. Computer, cross-reference the term Terran Dominion with all archaeological data from the excavation sites, she commanded. The massive archive systems beneath the Crystal City hummed with activity. These databases contained the collected knowledge of 1,000 species spanning millions of years. If answers existed, they would be found here. Around her, the emergency research team worked frantically. Representatives from every major species had been assigned to help, but most of them looked confused and frightened. The idea that something could be hidden from galactic memory was terrifying enough. The idea that it had been done on purpose was worse. Dr. Thornweave called Professor Rexmol, a senior historian from the Vorthan archives. I have found references to the term elder races in several restricted databases, but the files are sealed under Omega-class security protocols. Yela's tentacles curled with excitement and worry. Omega-class security was reserved for information that could threaten galactic stability. Only the High Chancellor could authorize access. "Get me Chancellor Mordecai," she ordered. Within minutes, the Chancellor's massive holographic form appeared in the archive chamber. His rock-like features showed the strain of the past few days. Reports were flooding in from across the galaxy. More ships appearing at the rim. More messages in the ancient mathematical code. More demands for answers that no one seemed to have. "Dr. Thornweave, what have you found?" "Chancellor, I need access to the Omega-class archives. The answers we seek are locked away under the highest security levels." Mordecai was quiet for a long moment. As Chancellor, he knew things that others did not. Secrets that had been passed down from leader to leader for thousands of years, but even he had never imagined they might be connected to an actual threat. "Access granted," he said finally. "But understand, Doctor, some knowledge comes with a price. Are you prepared for what you might find?" Yela looked around at her team, then back at the Chancellor. "With respect, Chancellor, I think the price of ignorance might be higher than the price of truth." The archive systems chimed as new databases opened. Information that had been locked away for millennia suddenly flowed across Yela's displays. What she saw made her sink into her chair. "Chancellor," she whispered, "I think you need to see this." The holographic display filled with images, documents, and records that painted a picture of galactic history that no one alive remembered. Images of species working together in ways that had never been recorded in official histories. Technologies that surpassed anything the current Confederation had achieved. And everywhere the same symbol, a blue world circled by darkness. "These are records from the First Confederation," Yela announced to her team, "a galactic government that existed over 12,000 years ago. But it was not dominated by our current species. The leaders were different." She pulled up an image that made everyone in the room step backward. It showed beings that walked on 2 legs with smooth skin and hair covering their heads. They were smaller than most galactic species, but something in their eyes suggested intelligence and determination that was unsettling. "They called themselves humans," Yela continued, her voice growing stronger as she processed the information. "And they were not just part of the galactic community. They were its driving force." Professor Rexmol floated closer to the display. "But that is impossible. We have no record of the species ever existing." "No," Yela corrected it, "we have no memory of them existing. There is a difference." She pulled up more files, technical specifications that made their current technology look primitive. Cultural records showing a species that adapted to any environment, learned from any teacher, and never accepted that something could not be done. Military records that showed them winning impossible battles through tactics that other species called insane. They were explorers, scientists, engineers, diplomats, and warriors, Yela explained. But most importantly, they were integrators. Everywhere they went, they brought different species together. They built alliances between enemies, found common ground between opposites. "So what happened to them?" asked Boulder, who thinks the Granite Clan representative. Yela's expression grew dark as she accessed deeper files. "They became too successful, too adaptable, too influential. The older species grew nervous about their rapid expansion and their refusal to accept traditional limitations. The display changed to show military records, diplomatic communications, and intelligence reports. A picture emerged of growing tension between the humans and what the files called the Elder Races. The Elder Races were the species that had ruled the galaxy before the humans arrived. The Zilani, the ancient Vorthan dynasties, the original Granite Clan kingdoms, and others we have no record of today. They formed a secret alliance to deal with what they saw as the human threat. Chancellor Mordecai's voice was quiet when he spoke. What kind of threat? The humans were uniting species that had been enemies for millions of years. They were sharing technology freely instead of hoarding it. They were questioning why some species should rule while others served. Yila paused as she processed more data. The Elder Races realized that if the humans continued, the old order would end. They would lose their power, so they went to war? No, Chancellor. They did something worse. Yila pulled up files that made her feel sick to read. They built a weapon, a psionic device of incredible power. Its purpose was not to kill the humans, but to erase them. The room fell silent except for the humming of the archive systems. The weapon did not just remove humans from the galaxy, Yila continued. It removed them from memory, from history, from the very concept of their existence. Everyone who had ever known them forgot they had existed at all. Professor Rexmole's tentacles writhed with distress. But why do we have records if the weapon erased all memory? Because the weapon worked too well, Yila said grimly. It erased the humans so completely that even the Elder Races forgot why they had built the weapon. These records are automatic backups that were hidden so deep in the archives that even the weapon could not find them. She brought up the final set of files, military reports from the last days before the weapon was used. The humans knew what was coming. Their intelligence networks were too good. They evacuated. Entire fleets, entire colonies disappeared into the dark between galaxies. The weapon fired and the galaxy forgot they had ever existed. But they did not forget us, Chancellor Mordecai said quietly. No, Chancellor. They remembered everything. Every betrayal, every friend lost, every world abandoned. And according to these files, they were not alone when they left. The display showed the final piece of the puzzle. Lists of species that had supported the humans. Allies who had chosen to follow them into exile rather than remain under the rule of the Elder Races. Dozens of species went with them into the dark. The mathematical messages Captain Zextai received mentioned that they were not alone. They have spent 12,000 years building a new civilization beyond the galaxy's edge. Chancellor Mordecai was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of ages. Dr. Thornweave, in your professional opinion, what do they want? Yila looked at the massive collection of data surrounding them. 12,000 years of hidden history. The story of a betrayal so complete that even the betrayers had forgotten it. I think, Chancellor, they want to come home. But the home they left no longer exists. The Elder Races that betrayed them have forgotten their own crimes. The species that rule now are the descendants of those who watched it happen. She paused, considering the implications of everything they had learned. They are not coming back as conquerors, Chancellor. They are coming back as the rightful heirs to a galaxy that was stolen from them, and they have had 12,000 years to decide what justice looks like. Outside the archive chambers, the crystal city of Nexus Prime gleamed under its 3 suns. But in the darkness between the stars, ancient debts were coming due. The galaxy was about to remember what it had chosen to forget. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominance, and felt pride surge through his scaled chest. Around him stretched the largest military fleet in galactic history. 10,000 ships from every member species of the Confederation floated in perfect formation around the Kepler Nebula. Zilani battlecruisers hung alongside Vorthan dreadnoughts. Granite Clan fortress ships drifted near the elegant vessels of the Crystal Collective. Ships from 100 different species, representing the combined military might of an entire galaxy, waited for the enemy to arrive. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, all fleet elements report ready. We have confirmation from sector commanders across the formation. Kethvar's sharp teeth gleamed in what his species considered a smile. After Dr. Thornweave's revelations about humanity's past, the Confederation had acted swiftly. If these humans thought they could reclaim a galaxy that had moved on without them, they would learn the error of their ways. Fleet status? He demanded. 10,217 ships operational, his aide replied. We have firepower equivalent to 1,000 planet killers. Our shields can withstand anything short of a star going nova. Our coordination systems link every ship in perfect tactical unity. The Admiral nodded with satisfaction. The humans might have superior individual ships, but warfare was about more than technology. It was about numbers, tactics, and the will to use overwhelming force. The Confederation had all three. "Sir," called his sensor operator, detecting energy signatures at the edge of the nebula. Multiple contacts approaching. On screen. The main viewer showed the swirling gases of the Kepler Nebula. For a moment, nothing seemed different. Then space itself began to change. Tears appeared in the fabric of reality, edges crackling with energy that made their instruments scream warnings. From those impossible wounds in space, ships began to emerge. The first vessel was the massive ship that Captain Zextai had encountered, its dark hull absorbing light like a hungry void. But it was not alone. More ships followed, each one unique in design but clearly built for war. Some looked organic, as if grown rather than constructed. Others appeared to be made of crystallized energy. Still others seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal held in ship shape by pure will. "Count?" Cathvar asked, though part of him already dreaded the answer. 57 ships, Admiral. All of them massive. All of them showing energy readings that exceed our measurement scales. Cathvar felt a moment of uncertainty. 57 ships against his 10,000 should be no contest. But these vessels were each the size of small moons, and something about the way they moved made his predator instincts whisper warnings. "Open a channel," he commanded. "This is Admiral Cathvar of the Galactic Confederation Defense Fleet. You are trespassing in Confederation space. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." The response came not as words, but as mathematics that his computers translated into a voice that somehow carried across every ship in the fleet, simultaneously. "Admiral Cathvar of the Zelani Empire. We know your family name. We know your bloodline. Your great ancestor Kethmor was one of the architects of our exile." Cathvar's scales bristled. His great ancestor had been a legendary military leader, but the records of his campaigns were incomplete. There were gaps in the historical accounts that no one had ever explained. "Your ancestor built the first weapons designed to kill humans specifically," the voice continued. "Energy frequencies that disrupted our neural patterns. Toxins that affected only our biology. He was very thorough in his hatred." "I do not know what lies you speak," Cathvar snarled, "but you face the combined might of the galaxy. Surrender now and you may live." The laugh that came through their communications was not human. It was the sound of a dozen different species laughing in harmony, and it made everyone on the bridge step back from their stations. "Combined might of the galaxy," the voice mused. "Yes, we remember when those words meant something. When the galaxy truly was united, not divided into the strong and the weak. But you threw that away when you chose fear over friendship." "Enough," Cathvar roared. "All ships, attack formation Delta 7. Show these relics what modern warfare looks like." 10,000 ships moved as one. The coordination was perfect, the result of centuries of tactical development and training. Energy weapons capable of destroying cities lanced across space toward the human fleet. What happened next would be studied by military historians for generations. Assuming any survived to write the histories, the human ships moved. But they did not move like ships. They moved like a single organism responding to a threat. Every vessel knew exactly where every other vessel would be. Weapons fire that should have overwhelmed them slipped harmlessly between their formations. Return fire came not from individual ships but from the fleet as a whole, concentrated and coordinated beyond anything the Confederation had ever seen. "Impossible," whispered Cathvar's tactical officer. "Their reaction time suggests they knew our attack patterns before we implemented them." The human weapons were unlike anything in Confederation databases. Energy beams that did not just pierce shields but seemed to turn them inside out. Projectiles that phased through armor as if it were not there, only to become solid again inside the target. Weapons that attacked not just ships, but the mathematical principles that held those ships together. Confederation vessels began dying, not just damaged or disabled, but completely destroyed in ways that defied understanding. Ships simply came apart at the molecular level. Others imploded as if space itself had turned against them. "Sir," his communications officer called out in panic, "I am receiving surrender requests from multiple ships. The Crystal Dawn reports their shields are feeding back into their own systems. The Granite Will says their hull is turning into some kind of energy field. But the worst was yet to come, As the battle continued, it became clear that the human fleet was not fighting at full capacity. They were holding back, using only as much force as necessary to disable each target. They were not trying to win a battle. They were making a point. "Admiral," his sensor operator announced, voice shaking, detecting massive energy signature approaching from deep space, something much larger than anything we have seen. The main screen split to show space beyond the immediate battle. What emerged from hyperspace was not a ship. It was a structure so vast that it cast shadows across entire star systems. Cities floated along its hull. Forests grew in its open sections. It was not just a vessel, but an entire world that happened to move through space. "By all the gods of war," Kethvar whispered. "What is that thing?" The mathematical voice answered his unspoken question. "That is our home, Admiral. The place we have lived for 12,000 years while you forgot we existed. We call it Haven, and it carries the children of every species your ancestors exiled." The massive structure moved with impossible grace for something of its size. As it approached, smaller vessels began launching from its bays. Thousands of them, ships crewed by species that Confederation databases had no record of. The exiles had not been idle during their banishment. "Admiral Kethvar," the voice continued, and now it carried notes of sadness alongside its power. "You command the finest fleet your galaxy has ever assembled. Your crews are brave, your ships are well built, and your tactics are sound. Under normal circumstances, you would win this battle easily." Around them, Confederation ships continued to fall, not destroyed but systematically disabled with surgical precision. But you face an enemy that has had 12,000 years to study your people's military philosophy. "We know how you think because we once fought beside you. We know your weaknesses because we once covered them. We know your tactics because we once taught them to you." Kethvar's tactical display showed the brutal truth. His fleet of 10,000 ships was being systematically dismantled by 57 vessels that were not even fighting seriously. "More importantly," the voice added, "we are not alone. Every species you see fighting alongside us was exiled as we were. They are the ones who chose friendship over dominance, cooperation over conquest, and they have spent 12,000 years building something your current galaxy has never achieved." "What is that?" Kethvar asked, though his ship shook around him as human weapons found their mark. "True unity, Admiral. Not the unity of the strong ruling the weak, but the unity of different peoples choosing to work together toward common goals. Your fleet fights as 10,000 separate ships trying to coordinate. Our fleet fights as a single organism with 57 bodies." The battle was over, though it took several more hours for the last Confederation ships to be disabled. When the weapons finally fell silent, Admiral Kethvar found himself the commander of a fleet that no longer functioned. Not destroyed, but rendered as harmless as toys. "Admiral," the human voice said gently, "your crews are unharmed. Your ships can be repaired. But your galaxy's military supremacy is over. We are going to Nexus Prime to speak with your leaders. You may accompany us or return home. The choice is yours." Kethvar looked at his ruined fleet, then at the massive structure called Haven floating peacefully among the wreckage of his ambitions. Somewhere on that vessel were the descendants of every species his ancestors had cast into the dark. They had not just survived their exile. They had built something better. "Signal the fleet," he said quietly. "We follow them to Nexus Prime. It seems we have much to learn about the galaxy we thought we ruled." As the combined human and exile fleet moved toward the heart of the Confederation, Admiral Kethvar wondered if his people were about to face conquest or salvation. Looking at the peaceful coexistence of species aboard Haven, he was beginning to suspect it might be both. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the ruins of the council chamber on Nexus Prime, her hands clasped behind her back as she studied the broken crystal dome above. Sunlight streamed through the cracks, casting rainbow patterns across the floor where the galaxy's leaders sat in stunned silence. She was smaller than most of the beings in the room, as humans always were, but something in her presence made even the massive Chancellor Mordkai seem diminished. Perhaps it was the way she moved with absolute confidence, or maybe it was the knowledge that her fleet had just defeated the combined military might of an entire galaxy without firing a single shot in anger. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the damaged chamber. "My name is Sarah Chen, Admiral of the Terran Dominion Fleet. I speak for humanity and for all the exiled peoples who have returned with us." Dr. Yila Thornweave leaned forward from her seat among the academics. Despite her fear, her scientific curiosity was stronger. Admiral Chen, the records show that humans were exiled over 12,000 years ago. How many of you survived? Sarah smiled, and it was neither cruel nor kind. It was the smile of someone who had seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. Dr. Thornweave, your archaeological work has been impressive. You managed to piece together truths that we thought were lost forever. She paused, looking around the chamber at faces representing dozens of species. To answer your question, we all survived. The silence that followed was deafening. That is impossible, Chancellor Mordecai rumbled. The records indicate that millions of humans lived throughout the galaxy when the exile occurred. 7,432,807,512, Sarah recited from memory. That was the exact count when the last transport ship left galactic space. And yes, Chancellor, we all survived. She gestured toward the broken dome. May I show you? Without waiting for an answer, she activated a device on her wrist. The air above the chamber filled with holographic images of the massive structure that had accompanied her fleet. But now they could see it in detail. It was not just a ship. It was a world. Cities sprawled across its surface, connected by bridges that spanned impossible distances. Forests grew in vast enclosed spaces. Oceans moved in contained seas held by gravity generators. And everywhere, beings moved through their daily lives. We call it Haven, Sarah explained. It took us 300 years to build, working together with all the species that chose exile over submission. It is home to over 12 billion beings now. Professor Rexmol floated upward in his environmental suit, tentacles writhing with amazement. 12 billion? But how do you feed so many? How do you maintain ecological balance on such a scale? The same way we learned to do everything else during our exile, Sarah replied. We cooperated. Every species contributed their knowledge. The crystalline collective, who were exiled for refusing to mine their sacred homeworld, taught us how to grow food in pure energy fields. The Void Walkers, banished for their genetic modifications, showed us how to create atmosphere from nothing. She changed the holographic display to show different sections of Haven. Agricultural areas that defied physics. Cities where dozens of species lived in perfect harmony. Schools where human children learned alongside beings that looked like living crystal, and others that existed as pure thought. But most importantly, Sarah continued, we learned to truly listen to each other. Not just to wait for our turn to speak, but to understand perspectives that were completely alien to our own. Admiral Kethvar, who sat among the military representatives with his pride as broken as his fleet, managed to find his voice. If you can support 12 billion beings, why return at all? You could have built your own galaxy in the dark between stars. Sarah's expression grew sad as she looked at him. Admiral, your great ancestor Kethmore was a brilliant military tactician. He was also my friend. The scaled warrior started as if struck. That is impossible. You are too young, and he lived thousands of years ago. Time moves differently in the void between galaxies, Sarah explained gently. We learn to extend our lives not through conquest of death, but through harmony with it. I am 4,000 years old, Admiral. I was there when the elder races made their choice. I remember your ancestor's face when he realized what his alliance was planning to do. She activated another hologram. This one showed a Zilani warrior arguing passionately with shadowy figures around a conference table. Kethmore tried to stop the exile, Sarah revealed. When he learned about the memory weapon, he attempted to warn us. He was killed by his own allies for his efforts. His sacrifice gave us the time we needed to evacuate our most vulnerable populations. Kethvar's scales had gone pale with shock. His family's histories had always been incomplete regarding his ancestor's death. Now he knew why. We return, Sarah continued, addressing the entire chamber. Because running away was never the answer. This galaxy belongs to all of us. It was meant to be shared, not ruled by the strong over the weak. Chancellor Mordecai's massive form shifted forward. What do you want from us, Admiral Chen? Sarah deactivated the holograms and stood silent for a moment, gathering her thoughts. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of 12,000 years of planning. We want what we always wanted, Chancellor. What we were building before fear and jealousy tore it apart. A true galactic community where every species has a voice, where knowledge is shared freely and where no one is exiled for being different. She gestured toward the delegates around her. Look at yourselves. You represent dozens of species, but how many of your worlds have a real voice in galactic policy? How many of your people live as second-class citizens under the rule of the major powers? Uncomfortable murmurs filled the chamber. The truth was that the Confederation, despite its ideals, was still dominated by a handful of powerful species. The elder races that exiled us are mostly extinct now, Sarah continued. Their descendants forgot the crimes but inherited the systems that made those crimes possible. You are not responsible for what your ancestors did, but you are responsible for what you do next. Dr. Thornweave raised one of her hands. Admiral, what exactly are you proposing? Sarah smiled, and this time it was warm and genuine. Integration, Dr. Thornweave, real integration. We propose to share everything we have learned in our exile, technology that could revolutionize your civilization, philosophical insights that could end the conflicts that have plagued the galaxy for millennia, genetic knowledge that could cure diseases and extend lifespans. She paused, looking around the chamber at faces that showed wonder, hope, and lingering fear. In return, we ask for what should have been ours from the beginning. Full membership in galactic society, not as conquerors or rulers, but as equals. The Terran Dominion wishes to dissolve itself and become part of a new galactic commonwealth, where every species, no matter how small or different, has equal representation. And if we refuse? Asked a delegate from one of the minor species. Sarah's expression grew serious. Then you continue as you are, and we return to the void between galaxies. But we will not go alone this time. We will take with us any species that chooses freedom over the current system. Based on our preliminary surveys, that would be approximately 60% of your current population. The chamber erupted in shocked chatter. 60% meant the collapse of the Confederation entirely. You would break apart our civilization? Mordecai demanded. Chancellor, Sarah replied calmly, your civilization is already broken. It has been broken since the day my people were exiled for the crime of believing that different species could work together as equals. We are offering you a chance to fix it. She activated one final hologram. This one showed Haven, but now it was surrounded by dozens of other massive structures. Each one was home to billions of beings from species both known and unknown. These are our allies, Chancellor. Species from other galaxies who have joined with us over the millennia. They are waiting to see what choice this galaxy makes. If you choose wisdom and cooperation, they will come in peace to share their knowledge and culture. If you choose fear and isolation, they will help us ensure that any species wanting freedom can find it elsewhere. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. This was not an invasion or a conquest. It was an ultimatum disguised as an invitation. Dr. Thornweave was the first to speak. Admiral Chen, how long do we have to decide? Dr. Thornweave, we have waited 12,000 years for this moment. We can wait a little longer. Take your time. Consult with your people. Debate among yourselves. But remember that every day you delay, more of your own species are choosing to join us. Sarah began walking toward the chamber's exit, then turned back for one final statement. The age of the strong ruling the weak is ending. The question is whether it ends with transformation or collapse. We prefer transformation, but we are prepared for either outcome. As she left the chamber, Admiral Sarah Chen carried with her the hopes of 12 billion exiled beings and the future of an entire galaxy. Behind her, the delegates began the most important debate in galactic history. The universe was watching to see which path they would choose, the path of fear that had led to exile and separation, or the path of hope that could lead to a truly united galaxy where every being had value and every species had a voice. The choice was theirs to make, but the consequences would belong to all of them.